Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Hogsty, your leading source for all things Redskins and the NFL. Lots of news coming out of camp, including a mounting injury list, including another shoulder injury for Deshaun Jackson, this one expected to keep him out for the first preseason game against Cleveland. Tensions were clearly high on the third and final day of joint practices with the Texans as a number of brawls broke out, and we'll talk about that. Plus, we'll go over our very own Robbie Duncan's sideline reports from Richmond. Meanwhile, lots of stuff is going on around the league as the dispute between Tom Brady and the NFL finds itself in federal court, and Aldon Smith is released by the 49ers with his own legal troubles. All that plus our exclusive interview with Washington Post's very own Keith McMillian. Stick with us, you don't want to miss that. It's all coming up next on the Hogsty.
It's the Hogsty.
All right, my name is Sean Conti, back from a brief hiatus. I'm glad to be back with you guys. So excited. I'm joined today by Steve Thomas. Kelly and Alex are going to be back with us next week, and Robbie's got the day off after pretty much running himself ragged covering training camp. But we'll talk about some of his stuff, and yeah, let's get into some camp news. We got to talk about the injuries first because it certainly seems like we've caught the bug, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, we've caught the bug again. The Grim Reaper is hanging over Richmond, Virginia, I guess. Deshaun Jackson is hurt. This time he's hurt his right shoulder this time. Last year it was the other shoulder, so... at least he's not hurting the same shoulder over and over again. The big dispute over his injury was whether or not he ran into a blocking sled. I think both Gruden and Jackson both said he did not run into a blocking sled. Isn't that right?
But they would say that.
They would, because think about this for a minute. I would hope to think that the equipment guys or whoever it is that does that, it wasn't stupid enough to put a blocking sled right next to the end zone during an 11-on-11 practice.
Right, that just seems like a injury waiting to happen, especially with this team. But yeah, I guess I'm just glad to hear that it's not the same shoulder because that is something that Redskins fans should remember from his first season here. He missed a couple games. I'm pretty sure he had some prior shoulder injuries with the Eagles as well. That seems to be his problem.
Yeah, so. He's not a big guy. What is he, 5'10", buck 80?
Short.
Yeah. He's not a big guy, and he's certainly far tougher than you and I are, Sean, but he's going to suffer probably a little bit more injuries. And when you have a guy who's relying on his speed and his hands, certain injuries become far more pronounced and relevant than others, I think. Shoulder injuries for wide receivers, big deal because they have to be able to raise their arms, and the catch radius is a big deal. So it may not sound like a big deal, but it actually is. This one is only a grade 2 sprain. I'm no doctor, but I know it goes grades 1 through 5, and 1 and 2 are considered to not be surgical procedures, I believe.
Okay. All right.
So it's a rest a few weeks.
Yeah, a couple weeks doesn't sound that bad. What he'll really miss is that first, quarter of the first preseason game that the starters would have played in. And then, yeah.
You know what, though? He's missed a significant amount of the off-season, OTAs he wasn't here for. Now he's going to miss some training camp. What I'm wondering, and I think what comes to most fans' minds immediately, is whether or not it's going to affect his, his ability to coordinate properly with Robert Griffin. Coordinate's the wrong term, but get in sync with Robert Griffin. That's my concern.
Yeah, and that's a fair concern to have. A lot of people obviously would throw in the argument that he's a veteran and he's earned his right not to attend, optional practices. I guess it just depends on where philosophically you fall on that line. But yeah, I don't know. I think the potential is there. They might be a little bit off to start, but something tells me Robert Griffin has bigger problems than perfect chemistry with his receivers.
I don't know. You know what? that kind of is one of his problems, though, isn't it? For a guy like Robert Griffin, whose problem has been finding his targets more than anything, I think that, the more in sync he is with his receivers, the better off he'll be.
Yeah, no, of course. But I guess it just depends on why is he off that rhythm in the first place. Is it because of a lack of communication between them, or is it other stuff? We could open the whole Griffin can of worms.
What are the other injuries we got?
Yeah, so unfortunately, it's a daunting list. The first one would be Williams. That's Trevardo, not Trent, luckily. Pia, Curse, Smith. It's Preston Smith. Chris Culliver, D. Hall, Jaron Johnson, David Amerson, Logan Paulson, though I hear that one is not serious and he's pretty much back. And then obviously D-Jax. So it's
there's another one though. We missed the beast of it all is Akeem Davis.
Yeah.
This dude did, everybody? This guy had surgery on Thursday, had a cast put on, and was back at practice Friday. That is being a beast. And it's probably born out of the idea that he knows he can't miss too much time because he's a bubble player. But my goodness, I mean, who can have surgery one day and be in an NFL practice the next day? That's pretty incredible, I think.
Badass. Yeah.
In terms of the injury list, obviously what sticks out is that all of our starting cornerbacks are hurt right now. Culliver, D. Hall, Amerson. I don't know what it is out there. It seems to me it's probably just more bad luck than anything, don't you think?
Bad luck, or a heightened sense of competition. They know they're all probably competing for certain spots, or some of them are. I mean, they're probably trying to play their hardest. Some of the new guys that are here, like Culliver and Johnson, probably want to prove something.
That's probably
Could see them
true.
really
And
going for it,
Yeah, maybe so. And I'm just glad, that D. Hall's injury doesn't seem to be his ankle again. I don't know with Hall it's a groin. I think he's got a strained groin, and It makes me wonder if it's one of these things where he's overcompensating, for his ankle, and that's caused another problem to develop. And we see that a lot in older athletes.
Yep.
you and I have no way of knowing whatsoever, but that's kind of what popped into my head. Is Hall's been fairly healthy over his career? I mean, aside from the big, but it makes me wonder if we're going to. Yeah, but it makes me wonder if we're going to start to see him be one of these guys who's nicked up more and more because he's getting a little older. He's in his 30s now.
I mean, I think we're already seeing that to a degree.
Yeah. The problem is, who's going to be behind him. I think we have a lot of confidence in Breland, but Amerson, nobody has confidence in, and now he's got a serious. Is it shoulder for Amerson? I think it's shoulder, right?
I think that's what I read. Yeah.
Amerson's got obviously had more downs than up. I think last year.
Oh no, he's or no. Yeah, no, it is a shoulder.
Shoulder. Yeah, because if when Hall goes out, that puts Breland in as a starter, and then all of a sudden we have Amerson as the nickel guy, presumably the nickel guy, and I don't know. That doesn't inspire confidence in me.
No, I mean, granted, I think he's better than people give him credit for, but he's certainly been bumped down the depth chart here.
Well, what was? Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Just his injury, by the way. Just an update on that. It's only it's a minor thing. It's only a couple days. So.
Well, I saw an interesting headline. I forgot to look it up before we started the broadcast here today. I'll try to find it. But, the Redskins are trying to convert one of these undrafted free agent wide receivers to corner. Did you all see this? This came up a couple days ago, and I'm going to, we'll try and find a name here for you. But they are trying to convert somebody. I think that if we were not injured and set at the position, they probably wouldn't try to do that. I wouldn't think.
Right.
At least not for a guy who's just an undrafted free agent, throwaway sort of candidate. That goes to show that I think the team is paying attention to all these injuries at least.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you have to. We're not that far away. What were we saying? The first preseason game? I mean, God, the first preseason game is Thursday. 4 days from now?
Thursday, yeah.
Yeah, we're there. We're in the thick of it. So, yeah, you better come up with a backup plan because you're going to need one. Well, injuries aside, let's talk about some other camp news. Obviously, it ended in true Redskins fashion with a series of brawls. I don't know if you watched any of that stuff, but there were like 4 separate scrims. Go ahead.
Yeah, I did. I saw. Well, first of all, it was Quentin Dunbar, who the team is trying to convert from wide receiver to corner, just from the last conversation. In terms of the fights, I couldn't honestly make out. There were 3 little brawls and then one massive team-on-team big scrum that looked like
the grand finale.
It looked like a riot, downtown riot or something. But I honestly couldn't tell who was the cause of that. The fans, I think. Yeah, there you go. It was
You can
certainly
watch
was
it.
the Texans.
We tweeted it out, ladies and gentlemen.
It's fun for the fans to watch that, and at some level, I'm glad that the team is tough. I think we need a few more bullies on this team. So I'm okay with some fights. The problem, of course, is it rendered the joint practice useless. We got zero benefit out of the last day.
Yeah, and it's only 3 days to begin with. You're right, and it was a total day wasted.
Yeah, because the next 10 minutes later, the teams are on separate fields practicing between themselves, which the Texans, of course, could have done in Houston. And we didn't need them there to do that. So it was fun to watch a fight because who doesn't like to watch sports fights? And in terms of the world of sports fights, it was a pretty good one. Because there were no refs there to control the blow whistles, so they just kept fighting.
Yeah, and I also want to say, obviously, joint practices are a huge opportunity because you get a little dose of another team's playbook, and it's good for a practical X's and O's reason. But another part of it is just to be around another team and be inspired by another team that's working hard, and it makes you want to work harder. And these things can happen, like these fights. It's not a total waste that maybe they didn't get that last day of practice in, because this kind of got them in the mindset of the season.
Yeah, I think so. If a fight's going to happen, at least it happened in the last practice.
Right, exactly.
At least it didn't happen in the first practice. It was kind of chippy, though, the day before on Friday as well, though. I think, or maybe it was Thursday, because Matt Jones completely trucked the Houston cornerback, and I don't think the Texans took that line down.
No, they didn't.
It was pretty brutal. It really was.
Yeah. I mean, he's a young guy, and that's his style of running. And, yeah, he certainly did, though, level that dude. That was beautiful.
Well, you know what? I mean, they were in full pads. It wasn't shorts and shells. It was a full padded practice. Right. I don't know what the guy, I don't know what they expected Jones to do, let up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad to see it. It seems like we always come out of the gates in these seasons not knowing how to tackle, not knowing how to truck through people. It takes us the first 4 games, to really make open field tackles. I'm glad to see this kind of thing.
Yeah, I am too, and I mean, I'm glad that overall the joint practices went better than last year, because it seemed like last year with the Patriots, we were just practicing with a team that was way out of our league.
The balls were inflated.
Yeah, that must have been it. It seemed like we almost got embarrassed last year.
Yeah.
And this year we weren't. Granted, the Texans aren't the Patriots. Nobody's the Patriots. But, overall we hung with it. Robbie's reports from training camp look like a fights aside, we at least held our own, on the 11-on-11. So that made me feel good.
Oh, yeah. And we'll see on Hard Knocks, too. Don't forget that.
Oh, yeah. Hard Knocks, for those of you out there, the first episode is coming up this Tuesday, which is the August 11th.
Beautiful.
And then so that will cover the Texans' first week of training camp. So that means the Redskins episode will most likely air on the 18th of August on HBO.
Yeah. I can't wait to see it. From what I hear, the cameras are not they're not afraid of Jay Gruden and the Redskins. Apparently, we've got a lot of screen time, or it certainly looks that way from what I've heard. So.
Oh, really?
It will be interesting to see. Let's keep going with some camp stuff. So obviously, folks, our very own Robbie Duncan has been down at training camp watching these joint practices. He's been writing up some awesome stuff. You can read it all on our website, thehogsty.com. You just click on the blogsty, and you'll get right to it. But some of the things to note that he talked about would obviously be. I think the first thing is Spencer Long's struggles and the move of Scherf to playing some guard. That seems to be the big news for Robbie and for everybody else.
Well, Spencer Long got the job by default more than anything else. He was not good last year. And the very limited playing time he got, he wasn't good. It just so happens that Chris Chester was playing ahead of him, and I think we all know how Chris Chester was. So it looks like sort of the starting the starters they're experimenting with this week or this past week is obviously Trent at left tackle, Laval at left guard, Lichtensteicher remaining at center, and then Scherf and Moses on the right side at guard and tackle. And that obviously is driven by the fact that Moses showed up looking like an NFL player this year. Because if Moses doesn't look like he can play, then you're kind of stuck with Scherf at tackle and then by default Long at guard. So we have more options than we did before. Because I mean, honestly, you know, I had written off Moses at least this year being a player just because he was so bad last year.
Yeah.
So it really is opening up options for us, and it makes me wonder. Well, you know, first of all, I think it's too early to just say, okay, Scherf's going to be the right guard permanently. We've seen, 3 practices at it? You know,
Right.
it's too early.
Right.
You know, and this is the kind of thing that probably goes on in a lot of training camps. It's just that the coverage in recent years, and this year is no exception, is so up to the minute. There's live cameras there. We have our guy, Robbie there, who's live tweeting practice. You know, you go back 10 years ago, we wouldn't have ever known any of this.
Right.
Right.
It's crazy to think.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, to your point, yes, Robbie is also quite high on Moses and seems to be pleased with what he's seeing. Tell you what, other news that was funny, and I wish I was Robbie so I had a front row seat for this. Did you catch the Josh Laribas GIF that went viral? Yeah,
I saw it. You know, the
That's
sad
just
thing.
Rough.
Yeah, but the sad thing is that's not the only Josh Laribas getting tossed like a rag doll into the backfield that we've seen.
Amen,
As
man.
a matter of fact, I think we've seen more Josh Laribas getting tossed video than Josh Laribas doing anything positive videos.
Yeah. And I mean, granted, it was Wilfork, but at the same time, that was just brutal to watch.
It's 75% of what Wilfork used to be too. Remember, it's not the Wilfork in his prime. This is an old Wilfork. I mean, he went so far in the backfield that he fell on Matt Jones. You notice that?
Yes.
It wasn't just like he lost. Yeah, it wasn't just that he lost the battle. It was that he got tossed backwards. It's just brutal. You know, I can't imagine. Obviously, the coaching staff's trying to figure out if they can salvage Laribas at all by putting him at center. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, he's one of those guys that, for whatever reason, continues to get these looks from coaching staffs. I don't know.
Well, you know, he was a third-round draft pick, and, I admire, at some level, I admire the team in not wanting to just throw away the third-round draft pick, especially since he's under his rookie contract still. I think this is his last year, I think, for it. So, I mean, this is kind of his last shot.
Yeah, as it should be.
Yeah, as it should
much
be,
love
for
for you,
sure.
Josh.
Yeah, I don't know a darn thing about Austin Reeder, the guy we drafted, the center in the 7th round.
Right.
Certainly I think Austin has some opportunity.
He was one of
to
those
make
guys
roster.
whose player profile pages was blank, I believe.
Yeah. It's we'll update something if you actually do something with this.
Yeah.
You're here and you consider it a gift. I think he has an opportunity, though. I mean, it's not like Laribas is excelling. And we haven't seen any positive reports coming out of, aside from that video, we haven't seen anything positive come out about him yet.
No. I'll tell you something else Robbie taught me. He taught me who the hell Reggie Bell was. Had you ever heard of this guy?
We might have talked about him once. I can't remember. Reggie Bell is... he's an undrafted free agent from the University of San Diego. He's 6 foot, 200 pounds. He was a fifth-year senior at San Diego. 132 receptions in college. Other than that, no, I don't know a lot about him at all. Apparently, if you read Robbie's report, which is on our website, he made a spectacular catch.
Yeah, that's what Robbie was
it's the
saying.
kind of thing that sticks out in coaches' minds. For those of you who never played football, I think people who have not played underestimate the value of practice. And I don't just mean value of practice in terms of learning the game. It's the value of what the coaches see of the players in practice.
Yeah.
Because all we see are the games, usually, aside from this training camp thing. But the more plays a player makes in practice, the more confidence a coach has to give them a little bit of playing time. And so Reggie Bell making a spectacular catch is one feather in his cap. We'll see if he gets some more playing time. That tells a tale. If these guys get playing time in the preseason games, that means the coaches are thinking about him. Okay.
Oh,
if you get these back of the roster guys who don't get playing time, that does not bode well for them. So watch for that.
Absolutely. No, I think there's a lot of these guys, these young guys, that know that they have a chance here that they maybe wouldn't elsewhere, and they're playing really hard. I mean, I think everybody's frankly playing really hard, and that is factoring into, I mean, we were talking about it earlier, into the, all the injuries.
Yeah, well, and Robbie also had good things to say about Ryan Grant from this past Saturday.
That's right.
Ryan Grant, the training camp hero from last year. I was thinking about him. He ran a 6'4" 40, 6'4", 640 at the combine. He's 6 foot. He's not that big. He kind of reminds me of Steve Largent a little bit. I'm wondering, because Largent had great hands. He ran great routes. He wasn't that big. He was about that size. I'm wondering, Largent's sort of almost the best possession receiver in the history of football in some ways. And I'm wondering if Ryan Grant couldn't use Steve Largent as his model, because he's not going to separate from people. He doesn't have the quickness for it. He's never going to be a Deshaun Jackson, threat where he just has to run the 9 route. The 9 route is the fly pattern straight down the field. And he's just not going to beat somebody at that. But he runs such precise routes, apparently, that it makes me wonder if has a future as kind of our long-term possession receiver if Pierre Garçon leaves.
Right, which is a very real possibility because Lord knows we are deep at wide receiver, which is another thing Robbie obviously pointed out.
Yeah. Well, Crowder.
How did we go from like a couple years ago with like Dante Stallworth to having Deshaun Jackson and Pierre Garçon on our team?
Yeah, I mean, we just kind of fell into Jackson. Who knew that Chip Kelly was going to be an insane, crazy man?
Yeah.
Lord knows what that guy's doing out there. We just literally
we'll see soon
into,
enough.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, don't forget that Andre Roberts was supposed to be our Deshaun Jackson.
Yeah, that's right. And I haven't heard. I don't think Robbie mentioned much about Roberts, did he?
No, well, he did. Not for Saturdays, but for last week's write-up that he went to. And I think we mentioned this in the last episode. He mentioned that Roberts was having a strong camp. He's obviously feeling the pressure because this Crowder kid is all the rage. Jamison Crowder, he's all the rage in training camp this year. If you notice.
Yeah. No, that's what people have been saying. Well, Roberts better work on his special teams play.
Yeah, I mean, because what stuck out in my head about Crowder is that Robbie said he's getting reps with the ones. Because we've had we've had our string of training camp warriors over the years, but Crowder's playing with the ones apparently, so that says something about him. I mean, maybe we struck lightning. Who knows? We'll see.
Yeah. Well, we will see indeed. Well, there's plenty of more to talk about going on in camp. Again, make sure you check out our website, go to the blog sty, and read Robbie's write-ups. They're really great, and they will give you an awesome understanding of where the Skins are at. So make sure you check that out. We definitely are very excited to play for you our first interview with Keith McMillian. But before we do that, maybe we should just chat briefly about some stuff going on around the league. Steve, what can you tell me going on with the Tom Brady dispute? I understand that's in federal court now.
Yeah. Tom Brady and the NFL both filed separate federal lawsuits. It was the proverbial race to the courthouse. The NFL filed what's called a declaratory judgment action in federal court in New York, basically asking the court to bless the Roger Goodell appellate decision that came out. The Brady camp, which is the NFLPA, filed a lawsuit in Minnesota. The reason they picked Minnesota. You say, why Minnesota? The reason is that there's a guy named Judge Doty up there who has, for the past several years, has given the NFLPA really their greatest victories over the NFL in a variety of lawsuits. So they were angling. This is forum shopping, folks. In the legal world, we talk about forum shopping. Every party wants to get the best court possible, and by best you mean the court that's most advantageous to you. So the NFL is desperate to stay away from Judge Doty. So they ran to the courthouse, filed a lawsuit in New York. They beat the NFLPA to the courthouse. They won.
Wow.
The funny thing, though, is actually, they might have won the battle but lost the war here because the NFLPA's lawsuit in Minnesota did not get assigned to Doty's court. It got assigned to another judge, which was a political conservative. Doty is...
This is like a John Grisham novel.
Yeah. Well, because Doty is a pro-labor, a little bit more politically liberal. It got assigned to a conservative judge in Minnesota, whereas the judge that I think his name is Bergman, I believe, in New York, is a Clinton appointee who is more politically liberal. So The NFL actually got the venue they wanted, but they might have got the wrong judge. So,
Wow.
but so it's just kind of funny things work out that way. But what I wanted to point out, I thought was unusual, is that the very first thing that the federal judge in New York did after he got jurisdiction was to order them to settlement talks. That's pretty unusual. It's not unusual that a judge wants the parties to settle. Every judge at some point will do that. If the parties just refuse to try and settle it, he'll just order them to arbitration or something, or mediation or something.
I mean,
But
what
this
does
is
that
the
mean that it's ordered to settlement talks? It means that the judge
that
does...
means
Go ahead.
well, it means that the judge looks at the attorneys and says, "I think this case can be settled. I want you guys to go in the hallway and try and settle it."
Basically does not want it to see the light of day in court.
Yeah, well,
think
I
it's
mean, it is in
necessary.
court. Yeah, what's unusual is that almost never happens right up front. I mean, this is the very first major action in this lawsuit. That's pretty unusual. It's
Interesting.
usually you have to get through a little bit of discovery and you get some motions going back and forth, and that's when the judge says, "Okay, do you think you guys can settle it? Would it help if I ordered you to mediation?" Mediation is when the parties will get in the same room, in the same office, and you'll have a guy go back and forth and help them negotiate a settlement. That's what mediation is, and that's what they usually do. But it takes a while to get to that point.
Right.
This is major commercial litigation. It's just a little unusual. So I think the judge recognizes this is kind of a dumb lawsuit.
Interesting.
He wants the case done. I think he's doing his best to try and get it done before September 4th, which is the first game. So I think what maybe we will see is some settlement negotiations brought upon by the judge's insistence, and maybe a deal will get done, and we won't have a long, drawn-out affair. Let's hope.
Gotcha.
So that's Brady.
Well, the saga continues.
The
Meanwhile,
never-ending saga.
yeah. Meanwhile, another player finds himself in court, though this one probably not going to get thrown out. Let's just talk briefly about Alden Smith. These are pretty crappy charges. As I understand it, DUI, what was it, hit and run?
Yeah, DUI, hit and run. It's a second DUI, I believe.
That's right.
Alden Smith was suspended by the NFL for, I believe, 9 games prior to this. So Alden Smith has a bunch of problems. And I think the first thing that everybody needs to be concerned about is Alden Smith's health. You have to, far be it from me to know what's going on in his head, but you have to wonder if the guy's an alcoholic, considering the number
just
of
a dummy.
alcohol. Yeah, maybe. So whatever it is, whether he's got if he's an alcoholic, I hope he seeks help and gets sober. If he's just a dummy, he needs to grow a brain. Who knows what's really going on. But I think Alden Smith is looking at a long suspension from the NFL, certainly a year, if he's lucky. And then he's got to deal with the criminal case and, second DUI and a bunch of other felonies. He may be looking at some short amount of jail time. Jail time in California sometimes ends up being less because the prisons are so overcrowded that people end up getting released a lot quicker than the sentences dictate. So I don't think he's going to do a ton of time in jail, but he may end up in jail for a short period of time. Hope he gets better. If he's an alcoholic, I hope he's ruining a great career. If he's an alcoholic, I hope he gets himself sober and gets his life together.
Yeah, amen to that. Well, otherwise, anything else we want to chat about? I know John Riggins has joined 106.7 The Fan. I think he's going to be doing like a two-day-a-week thing over there, which is going to be cool to listen to.
Yeah, I mean, Riggins is an outspoken dude, and so that's always good on the radio.
Always entertaining to listen to, absolutely. Yeah. Well, awesome. All right. Well, then, without further ado, I want to introduce our first interview. This is with the one, the only, Washington Post's very own Keith McMillian. He is an assignment editor for the Washington Post's Insider, so I would definitely recommend checking out his stuff. He's also a contributor. You can catch some of his articles on the Insider, so just head over to the Washington Post and check that out. It's all coming up next, and it was me, Steve, and Kelly. We chatted about really what it's like to be a reporter here in Washington. We've heard all kinds of things throughout the years about this being a media circus, so what an awesome interview to hear from the horse's mouth what it's really like. So check it out. Beautiful, man. So, yeah, we wanted to ask you tons of questions about your experience reporting on the Redskins and also a little bit about get your take kind of on how the next season's shaping up. But maybe first, can you tell us how you became an editor and contributor to The Insider?
Sure. I wanted to major in journalism, and I wanted to play football at a big college, probably like everybody in high school, and it didn't work out for me that way. So when I chose Randolph-Macon, which was a place I felt like I could play and I could be comfortable and all that, I gave up on my original dream. But by going to a small school, actually, it was good because the professors took an interest in me when they realized I was serious about journalism, and I was able to play football and actually still pursue what would become a career. So long story short, I worked at a Twice daily writing sports and town government. Then I moved up to a daily newspaper up in Woodbridge, Virginia. And then by doing the D3 thing on the side, I made a connection with somebody who worked at USA Today, and I got in over there. And then after 3 years over there, I landed at the Post. I've been there since the very end of 2007.
Right on. Hey, Keith, this is Kelly. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you.
Glad to be here. This should be fun.
Excellent. So, listen, you came up. You were born. You came from New England originally. Is that correct?
I lived in Massachusetts. I grew up in Massachusetts, but my family's from the Philadelphia area, South Jersey.
Good. So, you've been down here in the D.C., Virginia area for a little while now. Would you consider yourself a Redskins fan, or are you a little hesitant to jump on that bandwagon?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm a fan. I mean, this is what I do for work. But if you ask me, am I a native Virginian, I would say for sure. My kids are born here. I've been living here. I came to college in Virginia in '94, and I've been living in Northern Virginia since 2000. So I guess this is home now.
Hey, being a fan, it feels like work for us too.
Yeah, we don't get paid, however, to follow the Redskins, unfortunately. Whereas I guess some would argue that we're probably owed a little something at this point.
Yeah, I think we're paying ourselves.
I mean, that's part of it, though. You look at growing up in New England, I had a lot of Red Sox fans, and they were just miserable for years and years and years. And then when it finally paid off for them, they said they wouldn't have it any other way because it made the celebration so much more enjoyable. So if that's what you need to soothe yourself, tell yourself that.
That's what we tell
cool.
ourselves.
So,
yep.
Yeah, we'll just go through a 100-year drought, and then we'll all feel better, I guess, at the end.
Yeah, that makes me feel so much better.
I guess you do have to you have to live to the championship part.
Well, that's right, and hopefully I'll still be alive when that comes around again. So the Redskins, you cover the Redskins. You work with a bunch of guys that cover the Redskins. You're working with beat reporters all the time. The Redskins, I know that every organization is a unique organization. The Redskins defy logic by somehow being more unique than other organizations, particularly when it comes to the media. And the kinds of stories that are leaking out. It feels like we're in a cycle of drama year after year after year with this team. Why do you think that is? What is it about the Redskins that makes them different than other football teams in terms of the kind of high school drama that seems to come out of this group?
All right, well, let's take it back a couple of steps, because there are about three things that you hit on in that question that are all good to answer. One is that it's absolutely true that the Redskins, they don't lose boring, even in the years they're bad. The way I always say it is, they never go like 7-9 like the Titans or 6-10 like the Jaguars, and you kind of just forget about them. Regardless of whether they're winning or losing, they're always interesting. And for us in the news business, that's great. For those of us, for people who are just watching, obviously, and living and dying by the team's hopes, you probably hate seeing some of the stuff that's come out, especially over the past couple of years. The way the Shanahan era ended, the back and forth with Griffin. It's kind of been a roller coaster ride. That's tough to go through. But for us, we either prefer a really, really great winning season or a really eventful losing season. Though the worst thing is like just being middle of the road, boring, nothing to write about, lose every game 17-13 or win 20-17. That's what we in the news business probably
I guess they
can't stand.
They don't hold back on giving you interesting stuff to talk about, do they?
Right. And so another thing I should explain before I actually get to the media question too is that what I do is I'm the editor. So although you guys do see me write from time to time, my job is basically to kind of orchestrate what Mike Jones, Liz Clark are doing now. Jerry Brewer is going to be one of our main columnists. covering the team. Steinberg will be out there a lot. We'll also have, at any given time, several other reporters going out there who do video and photography and all that. So my job is to sort of keep us thinking, forward, make sure we're covering the important stuff, make sure people aren't writing the same thing. And then, also when the stories come in, organize them and get them out to everybody, 4 or 5 different ways. Obviously now people don't just get print. In fact, very fewer people probably see print than see it in so many other ways. You guys are all familiar with the blog, of course. People get a tablet, phone, and everybody wants it instantly. So part of the challenge and part of what's changed since I've been in the job is to figure out, the reporter might write something once, but we got to figure out how to get it to everybody the way they want it as fast as possible and as accurately as possible. So there's my job is kind of being a jack of all trades in that sense. And so I deal with the team in, I guess, a different, in many ways, I guess, is the best way to answer it. And I swear I'm getting to the answer of your question here, Kelly. But the reporters, who are mainly Mike and Liz, are out there. And, before it was Mike and Mark Maskey, they are there in Ashburn on a regular basis. They basically live and work there. And I see them once in a while in the office. We talk constantly, email, text message or whatever, but they work there. So do Kime and Tark and everybody else from ESPN and Comcast and Times and, Richmond Times Dispatch, freelance. They basically live in Ashburn, and they deal with the team on a much more direct basis.
Sure. So that brings me to a second kind of question. Which, there are a lot of people out there at Ashburn, watching the same things, talking to the same people, getting the same scoops. And it's got to be interesting. As an editor, you've got to manage an aspect of competition, right? You've got ESPN that's out there. You've got a whole bunch of people, who are trying to scoop. And one of the things that's changed, back in the days of Shirley Povich, you had people, you could take your time to craft a story and, bring in beautiful, sweeping, poetic allegory, and do all these things. Now it's about trying to get the big story in 147 characters, whatever it is, as fast as possible before the other people do, and to not have it be wrong. So between the two of that, how do you see this going forward? Is this becoming is sports coverage becoming really a race to the break on Twitter? How much of that is the future versus being able to write these sort of lengthy, well thought out, well researched pieces that used to dominate sports headlines?
See, I think it depends on what a reporter or what an outlet sees himself as. For us, for the Washington Post, we feel like more or less we have to be everything to everybody. So not only do we have to be fast with the news and be accurate with it, but if we're not the ones that broke it, or even if we are the ones who broke it and it's something very, the news is out there, we also kind of have to come back with the most thorough report, I think would be the best way to say it. And, there's probably times where you've seen it. A good example would be when Shanahan got fired, or when Gruden got hired. The news breaks, and then there's the second level of, okay, so now what does this really mean? And then there's the next level of, all right, we're introducing, the new coach, or how did this all happen? You go back, and they call it in the news business, they call it TikTok. You go through the timeline of how did this firing occur? Really, where did it go wrong? So we feel like I feel like we have to do all those things.
Yeah.
Keith, it's Steve Thomas here. I'd like to get back to the Redskins drama just a minute. My question to you is the fact that there's so much drama coming out of this organization a symptom of poor media control and public relations control by the Redskins, or is it bad luck, or is it some other reason? Why do we have more drama on this team than your other average football teams out there?
Well, I don't think it's a coincidence that you see it happen season after season in Washington. You don't see it in Baltimore. You don't see it in Pittsburgh. You don't see them having this. You don't see Indianapolis having this problem. There are certain teams who they're not dealing with necessarily the same kind of media, but there are certain teams who run things well, and it starts from the top down in the organization. And I think in Washington, that's definitely part of it. There's definitely something to it. But I guess what I was getting at earlier is that on a day-to-day basis, like at the worker bee level, we have really good relationships. There are definitely times where the team helps us out, or a coach or an assistant coach goes above and beyond to answer a question for us or to explain something to us so that we don't look bad when we write it. We put it out there in print. So I think a lot of those people who are out there in Ashburn on a daily basis have really good relationships. But at the same time, the Redskins certainly try to control the message. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, and it goes spectacularly wrong. And you guys see what happens when that is the case.
Sure. And maybe if you wouldn't mind speaking a little bit more to that, can you tell us a little bit more, like, what is your relationship with the players? What does that look like? And seeing them so closely, do you see the team differently, you think?
I think it's more for Mike and Liz and for the reporters who are out there. I work out of the office more than I would be out at the field or at Ashburn. So I'm kind of one level removed. But I think for the reporters who are there, first of all, you get to a point where it's anything that you love, even if you love it or you do it often. Once it's your job, the shine, I guess, wears off it. So yeah. I think reporters get to know the players and players get to know the reporters. And even though there's a natural distance between them, I don't think very many players will call reporters their friends, but they get to know each other. And I think they see how you work over time. They know if you're trustworthy and respectful. They treat you differently than if you're kind of there just trying to drum up drama.
Sure. I think they don't let you down there because the Redskins are running out of cornerbacks right now, and I did a little looking on the internet and noticed that October 18th, 1997, certain Keith McMillian picked off Aaron Brand of Emory and Henry twice in the same game. So I think that if you went down there to Redskins Park, they'd probably suit you up. So I don't blame you for staying in the office and staying away from that. Speaking of players, though.
I'm about 30 pounds away from being able to even get into the back pedal, much less.
Hey, just a little bit of working out, man. That's all it takes.
Be the only DB who has to fit into the O lineman's pads.
There you go.
You got to watch out for that. Speaking of players, though, I understand that you know Pierre Garçon a little bit from back in the day. Is that true?
Yeah, well, Pierre was a Division III player, and he was probably one of the guys who, unlike myself, who belonged in Division III. He was one of the guys who had D1 talent, and for whatever reason, he ended up at a D3 school. He actually was from West Palm Beach, Florida. He ended up at Norwich in Vermont, I think, through a high school coaching connection that he had. And then after spending a year at Norwich and basically dominating as a freshman, he sought out the highest place he could transfer without having to sit out a year. So he ended up at Mount Union. And I remember Mount Union going through this process of who is this guy, to then seeing him and really falling in love with him, because one of the things I know they liked about him back then is he never was afraid to do the dirty work. He didn't mind blocking. Certainly was a flashy player at the time. I remember him. There's a in D3 circles. It's a big highlight of him. He kind of caught a swing pass and probably could have just walked into the end zone, but he sort of like stutter stepped and slowed down and just leaped over the guy just because he could. Pierre was amazing. He's probably one of the few players that I remember seeing at the time in D3 who didn't belong in D3. I don't know if I had a great relationship with him then, but I know that my perception of him then and what he's turned out to be as a pro is probably very different. He's turned out to be a very thoughtful guy as a pro. As you guys know, you probably read about his work that he did with Haiti, his investment in the pizza business and all that stuff. And obviously there have been times where, last season being a good example, where he didn't put up the numbers he put up the season before, and he could have been very, very publicly frustrated, and he wasn't. So I think he's been a consummate pro. He's been a guy that you guys, I'm sure, are all as fans really glad to have on the team.
Oh yeah, you ever cross paths with him these days?
No, because I'm not out there often enough to do it. Mike knows him pretty well. Steinberg has a better relationship with him than I do. Just because of the nature of my work, I don't get to reminisce really much. Some guys from D3, when they make it in the NFL, I keep in touch with them on Twitter. Cecil Shorts, who's was with the Jaguars and now with the Texans, he tweets a lot more, and he's on Instagram and stuff. So I kind of catch up with him every now and again, but Pierre almost never.
Gotcha. And it sounds like, for the most part, the relationship with between the players and reporters is more like a professional type of relationship, you would say. Is that correct?
Yeah, it kind of has to be. And on one hand, we're all human. So reporters and players, I'm sure they could, you could be friendly, or you get your feelings hurt by something that's written. And I understand that you can't necessarily blame them for that. Players are probably skeptical of reporters because they have to be on their best behavior sometimes around them, and they can't always let their guard down, and you can't blame them for that. But I do think there's definitely something to the idea that players are in a meritocracy, right? They're judged on their work, their performance. So they also are looking at reporters, and this is television and writers as well. We're also in a place where we're judging our performance. We put our work out there every day or every week, and people tell us whether we stink or whether we're good at it. And so I think players do respect the people who work at it and who are there all the time, and aren't just looking to drum something up, or who are honest and trustworthy. And a lot of the best reporting is stuff that doesn't necessarily make it into quotes or into paper, but you ask people, hey, I'm hearing this thing from over here. Am I on the right track, or am I not on the right track? And you have to have relationships with players to be able to do that, especially if the relationship with the team doesn't go so well, where you can't necessarily depend on them to be straight with you.
Sure. I was going to ask you if it sounds like the relationship between players and reporters is more professional. If anything, there's a degree of separation there, I guess. What's the relationship between different media outlets and reporters that are competing for the same story? Could that add to the drama in Washington that we see here?
Well, I think those guys, they get along really well, to be honest with you. You wouldn't know from watching them that one's ESPN and one is Comcast and one is the Washington Post and one is the Washington Times, because that's their workplace, and so those are their colleagues. Those are the guys they joke around with in the office, so to speak. Their office just happens to be a box on the side of the practice facility in Ashburn. So it's a very weird dynamic, because they're definitely all trying to beat each other and be first on stories, but at the same time they're all good friends. It's very odd.
So no scenes from Anchorman where you all meet in a public park and duke it out with rakes and shovels and various implements of warfare?
Nothing like that, although I'm sure they've done some odd stuff behind the scenes.
Gotcha.
Hey, Keith, I want to go back to something you were talking about a second ago. When it came to, because it's true, you have the relationship between the media and the players, and the media and the teams it's one that has to be managed fairly carefully. Otherwise, you end up with a sort of like a Marshawn Lynch situation, right? Where you've got a guy that's just not going to participate. He's contractually obligated to, but he's going to be pretty terrible about it. And that brought to my mind the Deshaun Jackson situation when he left Philadelphia, right? So you've got a team that cuts arguably their most talented player. There was allegations of a smear campaign that went hand in hand with that. His relationships with his friends back in California, and he's this kind of guy, he's that kind of guy. As an editor, as somebody who's, part of your job here is to control, I guess, a little bit that relationship. You don't want to let your guys put themselves out there in a way that they can hang your paper out to dry when it comes to relationships with players. How do you think that situation went down that resulted in, the team obviously has a right to let Deshaun go for whatever reason they feel like, good or bad. But then the resulting article that I think came out like the next day or the day before, it was right at the same time. That seemed fishy, I think, to a lot of fans who were watching that situation. What's your take on that? How do you think that went down?
It's hard for me to speak on it without being involved in the production of the article, but I know when it came out, the timing certainly looked bad. The team cutting cutting him right after this article came out, it was only logical to link the two things together. I think ethically, I probably would have had a problem running the article as it was. I don't think we would have run it in the form that it was in. But to be fair, reporters and media outlets, we don't have an obligation to the player so much as we have an obligation to the truth, right? We do our work for readers, for people like you, and our job, sometimes the stuff we write is going to hurt feelings or is going to change somebody's career, and we wouldn't do it just to do it. There's definitely been stuff that we found out that was bad, but there was no reason for us to report it. There's
Tell us
no
all that stuff real quick.
Well, I'm not in the business of, and I say this to you guys on the board all the time, I'm not in the business of keeping secrets. So if it was something that I could justifiably say, we know this is true, then it would probably have already run in the paper. But there are certainly things that you hear and you go, man, that's just bad. That's sketchy. But we also have an obligation to not print it unless we know it's a fact. I can think of a situation where something that's been widely reported, we've heard, or we had heard prior to it happening, but we only had two sources. One clearly has a reason to lie. One clearly has a reason to tell the opposite side of the story. And we needed somebody in the middle to tell us what really happened. And then a third person, was there. But the third person wants no part of being involved in it. So we end up not being able to run with it because we just didn't have anybody who could, you can't just, for us, we can't just trust what one person tells us. That's right. Just basic journalism. And I know not everybody's doing it these days. And a lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot of people, some people get scoops that way by just running with what they're told, because it kind of seems like there's no penalty anymore for being wrong. Everybody, if you tweet something, and people quick have a short memory, they forget. Now, I have a question for you guys, though. Do you, as readers, really care who's first on a story?
No.
Or right.
Not
I think
one single bit.
I feel like that's such a journalism construct that we all, as journalists, worry about it. Journalists are competitive. Everybody wants to be first. But in reality, the goal is to be consistently serving your readers with the most thorough, accurate report you can
it's
do.
A legacy thing that comes from the print media days, right? If you had the story first back in the day, your newspaper was the only newspaper that carried that story. You made a lot of money that way, and so that has just carried on. But frankly, you're the first one to tweet something out. The only people who care about who tweeted that thing out first are other reporters. Nobody else really gives a damn.
Yeah, Keith, I can guarantee you there's not one single fan out there that has a scorecard. There's not one single fan who cares what source it is. Really, what I think I want as a fan is the most comprehensive information possible that's accurate. And that kind of brings me to what I wanted to ask you about. It's the Hogsty podcast here, we advertise ourselves as being by the fans and for the fans here. So the fans have believed for years that the Washington Post has had a bad relationship with the Redskins front office. Is that true? And how do you respond to that?
I mean, I would say it's true to some degree. The front office has turned over several times, but the owner's been the same since 1999. And to be fair to him, we've been very critical of him. A lot of people will say rightfully so. But people's feelings get hurt. Just because you're a public person doesn't mean that the criticism doesn't get to you, and I think that probably has affected some of the decisions over the years. Like I was saying earlier, I think on the worker bee level, the relationships are actually pretty good. I think higher up, they're not always so good. Obviously, I don't think the columnists who've angled for the name change have won themselves much love inside the confines in Ashburn. But
excuse me.
On the everyday level, the people who deal with Tony Wiley and who are out there every day, maybe just either agree to disagree or don't have a public position on it. We just cover it in the news and they get along really well. But I think certainly over the years there's been a lot of tension between the two. And to be honest with you, part of it is this. The Redskins, as you probably know, they don't like to give away anything they can sell.
right?
So
Yeah.
So
way.
for us, they have a broadcast relationship with Comcast and NBC. They have other print relationships. They have the radio relationship that you guys all know about with ESPN 980. They're broadcasting from inside the building in Ashburn at sometimes. So for us to come in there, and we're completely independent of them. We're not necessarily friends of them. We don't owe them anything, and they don't owe us anything except for the fact that the NFL says you have to let the media cover you and not stand in their way to what degree. That part of it is we're not necessarily supposed to be friends, and I don't know if you guys
Right.
It's nice to have some outlets who cover everything from a positive perspective, but I think you also need something out there that holds your organization accountable, and that is whether it's a sports team obviously is not life and death here. Really, the important journalist work should be holding governments accountable or politicians accountable, and we kind of do the same thing on a smaller level, but in the grand scheme of things, much less important.
I mean, I seem to remember Mike Jones broadcasting from what looked like a coat closet on some videos that were posted on the Washington Post website, years ago. I really wondered what in the heck was going on. Was he being banished to the principal's office or what?
The fact that you remember those is both amazing and scary. That's one of the reasons. That's one of the reasons why we do a post game video now, and it's just done in the office, and it's with folks who we're all watching the game anyway and covering it in whatever different ways with live blog, and Steinberg does the best worst. So we figured let's just have those people do it in an actual studio setting, because by the time the reporters get a chance to do it, they're not allowed to be on the field doing interviews because those rights are sold to the broadcast holder. So whether it's Fox or CBS or NBC, whoever's carrying the game, they have the rights to do that on the field. And I think there are probably ways to get around things like that. Like a lot of people just do it and then wait to get told not to do it. And we just said, finally, we'd rather have a decent quality video that wasn't necessarily from the field than to do those videos, which were, not to be fair to the reporters who they're writing the game story and they have to run down, do the post game press conference, go through the locker room and try to catch players who didn't make it to the podium, come back right, then blog all the injuries and all that stuff. By the time they were doing those videos, even from a 1 o'clock game, it'd be like 9:45 or 10, and their brains are fried.
Long day.
Gosh. Well, Keith, we definitely want to be appreciative of your time here. Any chance you have a couple more minutes here for our patented Hog-Style lightning round of questions?
Let's roll.
Oh, my gosh. Okay. So we're going to ask you a series of questions here. They're all going to be yes or no answers, and you cannot deviate from yes or no. So give it to us straight. Are you ready?
All right.
All right.
I mean, yes, right?
Yeah.
Yes or
Yeah.
no? I should be practicing.
Yes.
Exactly. All right. Will the Redskins have a plus 500 season this year?
No.
Will anyone besides Trent Williams make the Pro Bowl, and he may not either?
Yes.
All right. Will Jay Gruden be the coach next year?
Yes.
Will Griffin be the starting quarterback?
Yes.
All right. Will Junior Gill... Go
Can I
ahead.
use some voice inflection to suggest my yeses may not be stronger as other yeses?
You're working the system. I like it. Will Junior Gillette have more than 10 sacks this year?
No.
All right. Will Alfred Morris have his 4th 1,000-yard season?
Yes.
Beautiful. Will D. Hall start at corner this year?
Yes.
All right. All right. And this one we wanted to throw in there because we know this is one of your other athletic loves. Will American Pharoah win the American Cup this year?
The Breeders' Cup.
The Breeders'
man.
Cup?
So for everybody listening, these guys know that when football's in the off season, one of my side jobs is to oversee the horse racing coverage. I'll say yes.
Beautiful. Keith, thank you so much for being on the show, man. This was awesome. We really appreciated having you. Hopefully you'll come back.
Guys, best of luck to the Hog-Style, growing the audience, and I'm always big fans of what you bring to the website on a daily basis because being a regular audience helps keep us in line. We know we have readers we have to serve, and readers whose appetite for information is 24/7, 365. So anything I can do to help you out, I'll come on again sometime down the road if you'd like.
Absolutely. We would definitely like that. And you've done so much for us already. We're so appreciative. Go ahead, Kelly.
Real quick before you have to go, Keith. Just as a a regular on the Insider, I want to offer my thanks to you for what you've done for that particular piece of the Washington Post website. I think that since you've come on, it's been a really great place to hang out, to exchange some thoughts and ideas. I think the pace of content and the quality of content have gone up since you've been involved. So I just wanted to take a moment to thank you for your work there.
Hear, hear.
I appreciate that, and I'm going to take that audio clip and put it in my performance review at the end of the year.
I don't know how much it'd mean to your bosses, but whatever it means, we mean it. So.
Can't hurt, right?
Beautiful. All right, thank you so much, Keith.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, so you heard it here. That was Keith McMillian of the Washington Post. I hope you guys found that interview as enlightening and insightful as we did. Awesome stuff, wouldn't you say, Steve?
Yeah, I liked him. I thought he was, first of all, thanks to Keith for doing that for us.
Thank you, Keith.
He took some time out of his day to talk to the little old Hogstein. We appreciate it. What I found was the most interesting was that he actually acknowledged that the Washington Post might not have the greatest relationship with the Redskins front office. What do you think?
That's right. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. You never hear it said officially by anybody, but you always kind of feel like that's the case, particularly with some of the things that have gone on here over the years with specific Washington Post employees.
And by unnamed specific Washington Post employees, I think you mean Jason LaCanfora back in the day.
Yep.
Jason Reed, wrote a bunch of things and still to this day talks on the Man Cave on 980, some pretty awful things. I don't know if Mike Jones has stirred up too much trouble over the years, but Maskey probably has. Steinberg certainly has.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it gives the public the impression that Dan Snyder is a little bit spiteful.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, maybe is, maybe isn't. I tend to think there probably is a little bit of spite for it. But Keith made a good point. Keith said, they have a radio relationship, obviously, with Red Zebra, right?
Yep.
And they have a TV relationship with Comcast and NBC for the local TV. So they do have media relationships that do not include the Washington Post. That having been said, they don't have any print relationships with anybody.
Right.
So who knows? But the Post has probably been the most critical, I'd say, of any of the major media outlets over the years, at least. So, the idea that Keith said that, he doesn't speak for the Washington Post. We didn't put him on as an official spokesman of the Post. It was just Keith's personal views. The management of the Post may disagree with him, and I don't, and he wasn't as definitive about it as we're making it sound now, I guess. But I think it was the first real acknowledgement I've heard that maybe there's an issue there.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it was. He did not. The other thing he said that was kind of interesting was he didn't say there was an issue between different media outlets in D.C. It doesn't sound like there's a lot of station or corporate. There's not a lot of infighting between the different outlets, which you think that there would be.
Yeah, I mean, he made it sound like they were singing Kumbaya every day there in the office. Right. Maybe they are, because you always see this Twitter stuff between. Jones and Kime, where they're calling each other nicknames, and I guess they're probably in. Keith said they spend the bulk of their time in Ashburn, right? And I think that's what he said. So maybe it truly is like they're sort of colleagues, and they've become buddies. Because what he also said was, they're not, that the media isn't so much friends with the players. Right. And so, everybody has work colleagues, and so I guess the work colleagues aren't really the players, but they're their other fellow reporters.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was very interesting. Thanks to Keith for doing that. We'll have him on again in the future for sure.
Absolutely, yes. Definitely give Keith a follow on Twitter at D3Keith and check out his podcast Around the Nation for more Keith McMillian. Yeah,
and we have another guest coming up in a couple weeks. Mark Bullock from the Washington Post is going to be on the show after the third preseason game, whatever day that is. He, for those of you who don't read Keith stuffs, he is an amazingly brilliant X's and O's guy who has done a humongous statistical analysis of last year's offense. So we're going to have him on and talk to him about that. I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah,
and he's British, so I like an accent. So we'll have a British guy on here.
Yeah, there's nothing better than a British man who knows what football actually is.
Yeah, which is not soccer.
No, it's not. But yeah, no, he does, like Steve said, he does really cool game breakdowns and play breakdowns. Absolutely awesome stuff. Could not be more excited to have him on. So with that, we will leave you. We wanted to just give a quick shout out. The season is officially upon us. It's just about to start. It's just around the corner. And we have all kinds of new stuff, new guests, new segments, new formats for the show. It's been a slog through this off season, but we are so ready to kick the Hogsty into overgear. So please stick with us, and we will see you next week here on the Hogsty.